Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today on From Fact to Fiction, where we unpack the truth behind my favorite specialty thrillers. Think Michael Crichton, Robin Cook, Tom Clancy. And while these works differ in specialty, from spy to medical to techno thrillers, each immerses the reader in a new but realistic world. And the best of these blend fact with fiction so well that it's hard to tell the difference. You don't know what is, what could be, or what's totally impossible. It will take an expert to know. So each time we meet, I'll pair up with an expert and we'll select a new specialty thriller. We'll not only talk about why we love the book, but unpack the truth behind the fiction. Our book today is 2023 Novel Treatment Plan by Darryl Bollinger. Uh, it's about retired special agent John Cruz, who lives a solitary life in South Florida. His best friend implores him to find his daughter, who's vanished from a local drug treatment center. Drug-addicted patients cycle into and out of treatment centers, staying only as long as their families or insurance pay. Families go broke trying to cure their loved ones. The cycle never stops. Is this true? How can they stop the cycle? That's the topic for today's episode. Our expert today is also our author, medical thriller author Darryl Bollinger. Darryl spent 28 years working in the healthcare industry, and also has a master's degree in healthcare administration from Trinity University. He has 8 medical thrillers. Darryl's wish is that his readers will be transported and entertained in the same way that he still is today. That's why he writes. And that's exactly why I love specialty thrillers. They take you to a world away. Welcome, Darryl. Welcome to From Fact to Fiction.
Sure, Linda, and thank you for having me today.
Well, let's get to your book, 2023 Novel Treatment Plan. You could tell us a little more about it and any inspirations that you had. What inspired you to write this book?
Uh, the primary motivation was an NPR article that I read. In fact, I reference that at the end of the book and talks about that. And it talked about dumping patients, addiction patients, dumping them on the street corner in Delray Beach, Florida, which is where the novel is set. And believe it or not, Southeast Florida is kind of the epicenter of the addiction treatment. The whole industry really is that's one of the big, I guess, the mecca for drug treatment programs. And it's just, I don't know, I find it very disheartening to see things like that because I've seen it from the inside when I worked for this company. And it's just it's horrific and wrong on so many levels. And so I wanted to be able to expose that and talk about that in a way that makes sense and that people can understand. So the basis for it was in that particular area, South Florida. The majority of the people in the addiction treatment centers and facilities in that area come from other areas of the country. And they actively recruit in other areas of the country. And a lot of people like to send their loved ones to that area because, one, there's a wide variety of options available, and two, it's a way to kind of distance yourself from what's involved in treating addiction.
Hmm. Wow. Well, yes, the book seems very realistic and horrifying realistic. And I also love what I love about your book, aside from all the facts and what I learned about it, was your main character. He is a just flawed and normal, not does a lot of things that aren't, but he's a real human, and you feel for him. You feel what he's going through. Anyway, he makes a great lead character, and you're really rooting for him the whole way. And anyway, it's a great book, fast paced, And there's some twists in it, and we were not going to do any spoilers today, so don't do any spoilers. No spoilers. But I thought it was great. Obviously, it's a great book. Well, let's get to the facts behind the fiction of to the treatment plan. The main line I read in your book that I was like, oh my God, was rinse and repeat. Um, it struck me and I still think about it. Can you describe what for our listeners, what that means?
Well, I think John Cruz, my protagonist, says it best. In the book, he's talking to his detective friend and talking about an overdose who was dumped in the streets of Delray Beach. And he tells her, he says, when they're talking about this person, he says, probably already back in rehab, rinse and repeat. And he goes on he's thinking he knew that for most addicts, rehab was a revolving door, which suited the treatment centers. Typical of the U.S. healthcare system, you make money from doing things, not from fixing things. And that is so much a part of our entire healthcare system, that it bears repeating and understanding that healthcare isn't truly a business. There's a profit motive in it. You have for-profit players, not-for-profit players. You have, individuals. You have voluntary agencies like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. You have religious organizations involved. But at the end of the day, healthcare is a business, and everybody is running it like a business. And that's where that came from in terms of John. That was his attitude, is that it's a business, and they won't. I shouldn't say they won't, because like in any industry, there's good players and bad players. But there's too many bad players, in my humble opinion, and the bad players want to repeat the cycle. And treating any kind of mental health issue, addiction, psychiatric diagnoses, it is very complicated, and it's usually a long-term prospect. So you can't just admit somebody to a treatment program for a week and expect them to be, quote, cured. It's a much longer process than that. And so I think a lot of the players want to really have people come, through the revolving door and come back into the system so that they can make money off of that. And it's sad, and it's horrifying to even say it out loud, but it's so true. And again, I saw it firsthand.
Yeah, I was struck by that. And in the book, one of the companies is actually going to IPO. And so they've want to put forth a great, bottom line for their quarterly report to send to their potential shareholders. And yeah, and it's not just those, they are also, I think, owned by private equity, owns a lot of them, right? So they're just doing nothing but trying to eke out that last little bit of profit margin. So are there nonprofit treatment centers? Is that something, and are they, I mean, I know this, maybe you're not an expert in this, but do you recommend, I don't know if somebody was going to go to a treatment center, that they select one of those over the other? No.
Not really, and the reason, Linda, is I really dislike the moniker not-for-profit. I work for a large not-for-profit hospital system, and I think it's misleading because that leads you to believe that the entity is not interested in maintaining a bottom line, if you will. And basically, even nonprofits or not-for-profits, whether they're religious organizations or any other, they have to make money. I mean, to exist and to be able to provide the treatment. So I really dislike the term not-for-profit because they're all trying to make a profit, some more aggressively than others, and some more, I think, morally, correct than others. But they're all trying to make a profit, and I don't think that seeking out that should be the single criteria for seeking out a particular treatment center.
And is there anything you'd like to tell us about, how they operate in the real world from a patient's perspective?
Well, it's you know, it's there's so many interconnections with all the. I mean, when we talk about treatment centers, one thing I guess I should clarify is there's a lot of different types of treatment centers. There, but they're interconnected. I mean, you have inpatient care, which is an inpatient program, which means you check into a program and you're there. You have outpatient programs. You have individual therapists and counselors. I already mentioned voluntary agencies like AA. You have religious organizations. And part of the issue is there are varying degrees of regulation involved in those different types of
Huh.
entities. And that's one of the reasons Florida has always been such a mecca is, and I'll give you a good example, which to my knowledge is still true. Everybody's heard of halfway houses or
Mhm.
sober homes. They go by a lot of different names. Well, in Florida, those are totally, completely unregulated. If
Mm.
I wanted to go out and open up a sober home in my neighborhood tomorrow, provided I meet the zoning requirements that some communities have, there's no licensing required for that. There's no background check on me to do that. Some of the more unscrupulous ones,
Mm.
they will take referrals or give referrals to other people that are in the chain, to an inpatient care facility. I mean, there's numerous examples. You can go online and it's just the
Mm.
volume is overwhelming where people are paying. They will actually, some of the more devious ones, they will actually have recruit an addict to go into a program for the sole purpose of recruiting patients for another type of, or another modality of treatment. And they
Mm.
get paid a bounty for that. All that, which is completely illegal, immoral, but that kind of thing goes on. So I would suggest that when people or faced, and all of us run into this, either personally or family or friends, but it's really hard to discern, what the motivation is and what the linkages are. And I think the best thing I can say is do your homework. Don't trust the ads or the even referrals from other people, because a lot of people don't know and see all these things that go on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And so you have to be your own advocate, either for yourself or for your loved ones. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you see something that you think is suspicious, ask a question about it. If you don't get an answer you like, contact the appropriate authorities. Let them investigate. And don't hesitate to do that. And that keeps the good programs good, and it helps root out the bad programs. But it's very, very difficult because there's no registry that you can go to and it says, oh, this has this
Mhm.
particular treatment center has a 5 star. I mean, you can find it, but the ratings are worthless. They don't really mean anything. And so it's hard to rely on the advertising and the ratings. You just have to be careful and do your homework. I don't
Thank
mean to depress you with all
No.
this.
It's so enlightening and it's so great and it makes for such terrifying fiction, right? I mean, that's why we write thrillers. What would thrillers be without bad guys? And you've got them at your fingertips and right everywhere. Awesome. Um, well, I think I don't have any. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the facts behind the fiction of the book? I asked you a lot about drug treatment centers. Is there anything else you'd like?
I guess the only thing I would add is the title treatment plan. There's some fact behind that. I know for a fact that some facilities, again, there's scrupulous and legitimate ones, and there's unscrupulous players, but it is not unheard of for, if you say, for example, you admit a loved one to a treatment center. And the first thing they do is they want to know how you're going to pay for it. Are you going to write a check? Is it covered by insurance? And most of them do what they call treatment plans. And that's basically is a document that they prepare for your particular care and your particular illness, whatever it may be. And I know for a fact that there are facilities that tailor, if you will, tailor the treatment plan to the payment. So if you have an insurance, for example, you have health insurance that covers 30 days in a treatment program, surprisingly not. The treatment plan they come up for you is 30 days. And if the next person that walks through the door with the same presentation, the same pathology or similar pathology, and their insurance only covers 2 weeks, then guess what? Their treatment plan is a 2-week treatment plan. And this is not made up. This actually happens. And again, that's one I think people should be very cautious in terms of evaluating different programs and how they work. I mean, to me, the treatment program should be somewhat independent of your ability to pay, but it's very much tied together because, again, all these places are businesses.
Wow. Amazing. And it seems like, unlike critical care in a hospital, I think I saw in your book, there was the quote of no payment, no service, no exceptions. And I guess, and it probably is that way.
It very much is so. And even if for those that have insurance, when the insurance runs out, and that gets back to the patient dumping. I mean, that article, if you go back and read the NPR article that kind of was the genesis for the book, that happens on a regular basis when people are literally kicked out on the street because they or their family can no longer afford to pay, and they dump them on the street, which is just is horrible. But that actually happens. I mean, I actually made a couple of visits to Delray Beach and talked to some of the local people, and I ended up talking with somebody in a restaurant, and her husband was a first responder in Delray Beach, and so we got to chatting over lunch, and I was telling her about, and she said, "Oh yeah, you need to talk to my husband. He can tell you." I mean, this happens on a weekly basis where patients or residents, as are a lot of times called in these programs, are dumped on the street because they can no longer afford to pay.
Horrible. Wow. So I guess usually we end this by saying, okay, fact or fiction, but I think we know the answer here. So, does treatment plan accurately reflect the business of drug treatment centers? And I think you'd say our answer, unfortunately, is absolutely fact in this case, right?
Unfortunately, I think it is. It is. As I tell you, people ask me all the time on all of my books, they say, "Is this really true? Did this?" And I tell them, I say, "Well, it's fiction based on fact, and that's the way I write it. I want it to be authentic and representative, good and bad, and unfortunately, you get both of those."
Yeah. Goodness. All right. Well, thank you. I think our time is done, and then our facts are we have unpacked the fact behind the fiction, and I would just like to thank you so much for joining us today, Darryl. And you said you will come back and speak to us about elder care and maybe some of your other books too. We love to hear about all of the other aspects. It's really so interesting to know to get this knowledge from an expert that it's very hard for most people to find, or people wouldn't even think of looking, right? Wouldn't even think to look for these things. And so it's been so great to have you here. And you'll come back, right?
Absolutely, and thank you again for having me. Enjoyed it, and always love to talk about healthcare and the things that go on in the healthcare system. So thank you again.
Thank you. So we'll post all of the links to your books and a link to the NPR article, and keep everyone posted on your upcoming release and all the other book reviews that we do. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great day.